My guest today crossed continents, cultures, and medical systems, growing up in Russia, building a career in high pressure media, and then finding herself pregnant with identical twins in Los Angeles. What unfolds is a story of inherited birth trauma, late pregnancy pressure, and a mother who wasn't afraid to trust her body and question the system when it mattered most. Her doctors pressed for a scheduled delivery date, but her babies had other plans. I'm pregnancy focused chiropractor Dr. Elliot Berlin, and you're listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. Sasha Bessonova, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Dr. Berlin.
Nice
It's
to
a
see you
pleasure.
again.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I want to find out about your juicy twin pregnancy and especially your birth story, but we always start at the beginning. You were raised in Moscow. What was your early life like?
I was born in the 90s. I do not remember much of my childhood before ages 6 or 7, and maybe that's for the better. From stories that my parents tell me, it was tough time with not much food to eat or products to buy, but I fortunately had a very loving family, and I think back about my childhood and like early teens there, and it was great. It was a lot of time outside, museums, theaters, had a beautiful group of friends and relatives around me. And I left Russia when I was in my early 20s, and that was a very different story from when I was a child.
You started working in Russia at a pretty young age. Why so young and what did you do?
Um, I started working shortly before I turned 18. I went to university when I was 16. So it was my second year of university, and I was so bored
Oh, is that
leaving it.
uncommon to be in university at 16?
It is a little bit, but my birthday is in October, so I'm one of those children who like kind of like go a year earlier before their peers.
Oh,
But
the
it's not an
pre-cutoff
uncommon.
baby.
Exactly. I was always pretty proud about that for some reason. Like it was nice to be the youngest in the class.
Like you chose the best month to come out.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But yeah, like when I think about why I started working early, I was just very bored. Yeah, my university was, I was studying journalism and public relationships, but they didn't really teach us about internet or social media. But I remember a lot of subjects about political propaganda for some reason.
Uh-huh.
I was
Interesting.
lost a little. Yeah, I was lost a little bit when I was studying. So I wanted to get some real life experience.
And what
So I
was the
wanted,
job like?
it was, I got it through my neighbor. My neighbor was a very famous Russian TV anchor. He was like a political news anchor, and I was friendly with his mother. And I went to their house to have some dinner one day and told him that I really want to get some real life experience on a job. And I think he asked me, he was like, "What are you into? Are you into sports?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he was like, do you like watching Olympics?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I watch it every year before I but actually they do not happen every year." So I was bad at lying, but very, very ambitious to get a job. So he helped me find a spot as an editor assistant, just like free. I wasn't paid, obviously. I was just getting experience. So
Intern.
it was almost like an internship, correct? So I was interning at a Russian news TV channel for almost a year and a half. And then they were so happy with my free labor, I guess, that they were like, "Look, there's a new TV channel that's opening. Why don't you go there and try to be a producer there?" So I went there and I did another free internship for almost a year with another 5 interns. And then finally, at the end of that internship, I got a job.
What kind of stories were you working on?
Well, the first internship, it was covering all kinds of stories, economics, politics, war, I don't know, falling airplanes. It was international news. The production job that I got, it was CT TV channel. So we were running a lot of CT stories. It was first Moscow sponsored. So it's like City Hall sponsored TV channel. So it was mostly news about the city. We were doing a lot of the like holidays, opening metro stations, I don't know, interesting family stories,
It's a
some
little of everything.
scandals. Yeah, but just like mostly like not the federal level, but just the city level.
City
There
level.
were
Okay.
also on weekends when nothing was happening, there were stories about some squirrels stuck inside the rain drains. So I remember
Well,
those were like
soon
sometimes we
you
were so bored we were doing live transmissions from there.
you soon left Russia. You left your job in Russia altogether. What prompted that?
Um, so I was in news production for almost 5 years, including my internship. And then after I changed TV channels and got to a pretty senior job, like I was the only international news producer for the weekly analytical TV program that got like a bunch of awards, and it was all very serious. And the TV channel director wanted me to start being in charge of the international news department. And I was like in my early 20s, and that was also overwhelming. But the more I worked there, the more pressure I felt from the top when our editor-in-chief would come with a very prefab agenda of how news should be told. And it was never about hearing the two sides, and it was often with a certain angle to the story.
Mm.
And even though I was really ambitious, and for me as a child, it was really important to like prove that I'm worthy of things and that I can accomplish certain results with my work, like I soon understood that I'm yet just another piece in this big political agenda that is pretty contradictory to my views and my values. And I left for this place called Strelka Institute for Media Architecture and Design, and I started working in educational technologies. I was producing online courses. And then 2014 hit, and Russia invaded Crimea, and the political landscape started to shift dramatically. Every single weekend, I would go to farewell parties of my friends, journalists, entrepreneurs, artists, and they all were fleeing Russia because they were facing restrictions and they were facing regime going after their work. So it was not safe for them to stay. And then that was just happening more often, more often, more often. And me and my boyfriend at the time decided to also explore our chances to live abroad.
Hmm. You came to the US and you moved around a lot. New York, San Francisco, and eventually Los Angeles. In a nutshell, what was all the transitioning about?
New York was very much like Moscow. I loved it there. It was electrifying. And at the same time, it felt like every morning you would wake up with so much FOMO, like fear of missing out. And living there without a steady job was really, really hard. Then,
Expensive.
oh yeah, yeah. We lived in Bushwick before Bushwick got gentrified. And I remember spending most of my time in skate parks. And I didn't even know what kale salad was. So that for a Californian could give you like a glimpse into, how bizarre the life in New York was at the time for me. I couldn't imagine paying, I don't know, like $13 for a bowl of salad. We went to California for a trip to see our friends, and that just was a shock to my system. We had this joke with friends we called it California afterlife because it felt like you already died and this is the paradise.
Oh,
Um, Although we decided to move to San Francisco, and I was still working remotely at the time for my job in Russia, and it was a joke to try to live in San Francisco with a salary of $1,000 per month. Like that was
this is
that was
coffee.
Yeah, that was coffee, and they're not happy to have you in any of the coffee shops because they're not happy for you to use their Wi-Fi and stay there for
All
hours.
right.
Although I spent a lot of time in the Starbucks next to my house, sitting there with three queer women who also were always playing computer games, and I was trying
Oh,
to do my job from there. But we became good friends after half a year of hanging out at the same table. Yeah, San Francisco was really fun, very expensive. But then unfortunately, I went through breakup with my first husband, and I decided to move to Los Angeles to have just change of environment, change of scenery, and that was the beginning of my Los Angeles chapter.
and a change of career. What do you do now?
So currently, I work in influencer marketing. I'm chief strategy officer in this startup called Kyra, which is a leading AI-powered marketing agency that works with content creators. That's a really interesting shift for me. Like after I worked in news broadcasting and then education. And then there was a chapter where I was doing a fashion in Los Angeles and a chapter where I was working in Web3 in Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, if you look at it, my role as a producer is to put together strong creative teams. And that's really what I've been doing through all these industries.
All right, we're gonna take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about Sasha's pregnancy journey, her mother's birth experience in Russia, and how all of that shaped the way she approached her own care. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Sasha Bessonova. Okay, let's talk about pregnancy. Where'd you meet your partner that you had this baby with?
The babies. I met Daniel at the pool, a public pool in Glassell Park.
Oh, just like who approached you?
I was there reading a book. He decided to stop by and say hello. It was very cute story of like him staring at me for an hour, and then the announcement was that the pool is closing in 5 minutes, and then he takes his courage and comes to me and asks for my phone number.
Just at the
And he
buzzer.
was Yeah, he was very, very shy, so I could say that this man is not going every weekend to pool to pick up a girl.
Right.
So that moved me, and yeah, since then we're together.
Worked out, but you waited several years before having the babies.
We lived together through pandemic, which felt like all those years times 10. So it felt like we'd been together not 5 but 55 years before we had babies. But yeah, we were riding it out with each other, and then life was lifing. My father passed away a year before I got pregnant. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
In
we
Russia?
were ma yeah, he was back home in Russia. He had leukemia and was
Oh,
fighting it for over 7 years.
oh my.
So yeah, I was just like mentally not quite there, but then the test came and we learned that we are pregnant.
You learned in a funny time and way.
Indeed. We were married for already 3 years, and Daniel really, really wanted to have a wedding. I hate being center of attention. I don't know how I'm on this podcast, by the way, but I'm really, really stressed usually when I become center of attention. So I tried to postpone our wedding multiple, multiple times. And so 3 years in, we finally decided to have a party. And it was the day when I was supposed to go and buy a wedding dress. I didn't have my period. I decided to look up how pregnant women look when they're 6 months in, got terrified, understood that I really need to know if I'm pregnant or not before I'm going to drop all this cash on dress. And yeah, and then I saw the lines. I rushed outside of the house. I couldn't even tell Daniel yet. I think he wasn't home or something. And then my mom was there waiting for me in the car to go shopping.
And when did you tell him and how did he react?
I told him the very next day because it was our wedding anniversary.
Oh,
And I think that I should have maybe watched less movies to have a certain expectation because all what he said was, I knew it. I was like, what do you mean? And he was just like, I just had a feeling you're pregnant. That's great. I was like, wow, yeah, that's incredible.
Anticlimactic for you.
He was very, very happy. But I think that because he's older than me, we have 9 years difference. He had an experience in his friend circle with friends who got pregnant and then unfortunately miscarried a lot in the first trimester, and also a lot of families that go through IVF. So I think that he was probably absolutely psyched, but I think he was worried to show too much emotion to get, it's almost
Oh,
like this first trimester, like for some reason, like I understand what's the reason, but like basically he was worried to get too excited.
cautious
And
optimism.
yeah, yeah. And I saw the same reaction with some other friends and family.
Did he come
Just
with you to the OB visit, the
he
first one?
did. He did. He
You
went
were
with me to
together.
all of them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you were just expecting, like, maybe we'll see the heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, the first visit, I think I was like 9 weeks in. I decided to go to my OB, but she was very busy, so I couldn't get an appointment until a little bit later. Then I think usually they do like the first check at 6 weeks. And so we went at 9 weeks, and I was just like, is that thing there alive? Like, are we in a good track? And then the nurse just started getting really emotional, and we both were like, what's happening? And then the doctor was like, oh, double trouble. And I just
Funny way
remember, I
to put
remember
it.
I started laughing and crying at the same time. I was just like so emotional. I had a feeling I'm going to have twins. Like I kept like telling Daniel, like, we cannot be just regular parents. How wild it would be if we had twins. And then he'd be like, what are you talking about? And then we go to this appointment, and the rest is history.
And it's always interesting to see the reaction
Daniel said
when,
that he had the first episode of total shock when he's like, it feels like you have an outer body experience and you're not inside your body. And this is just happening to you, but you're not like active in this moment. Like the room is swinging a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I'm still understanding that I have two children.
and they're 2 months old. I remember meeting you, and you said your pregnancy, you were feeling fine, that it was pretty smooth.
Yeah, my pregnancy went super smooth. The first trimester, I was having nausea and I have been, throwing up occasionally here and there. Definitely needed to stop my car while driving at least twice
Oh,
to just like take a breather. But yeah, I had nothing crazy. I mean, I had my wedding for 125 guests being on the 29th week, and I did a lot of production and building for it myself with my friends.
I guess
And
127 guess if you count those two.
yep, they were prime stars on the dance floor. And, yeah, we had like big wedding. We took several trips throughout my pregnancy. It was definitely one of the hardest years at work for me, just because so much was happening, a lot of meetings that I needed to fly cross country for. And it kept me on my toes. But thankfully I was feeling good.
Prior to finding out you were having twins, had you given any thought to birth? What kind of birth choices you might want?
Um, I did think about it at some point. I definitely was not thinking about it from the very beginning. I remember reading this book by Emily Oster called Expecting Better, and it was really helpful for me as I was navigating my first trimester, because even the book goes in order of chapters through first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester. So you definitely don't start thinking about birth right away.
In the first few chapters.
Exactly. You're still like, can I drink alcohol? And what about that sushi? Like,
Yeah.
you're still a little bit like there, and then learning about, what do I do when I have cold, before you're like, oh, how does induction affect my body? Or what's the difference between vaginal birth and C-section? So I think that I started really diving into it more in the second trimester. But from the get-go, I knew that I'm going to deliver them in a hospital. And that's
Okay.
not because there were twins, but just because through my whole life, all women in my family were huge advocates for in-hospital birth. And they were all talking to me about possible complications with birth because both my mom and my grandma went through pretty intense birth experiences themselves. So I think they were just speaking from what they know. And so just assuming that I might have the same. And that affected me. I think
What
that
was
women
your
who,
your mom's
Mhm.
experience? She had some traumatic birth history.
Yeah, my mom gave birth to my brother when she was 19, and then she met my dad in her 30s, and the baby before me unfortunately died. She was in her third trimester. Something brutal happened. No one really knows what was the reason for the baby to die, but he died. It was a boy, and then she started having sepsis, and she carried him in her body for some reason longer than needed after he passed away. That infected her whole system, and then
Oh
she
my.
stayed for a couple of weeks in a hospital, pretty traumatized by the whole experience. And the doctor who was her OB then told her to take some rest, and if she wants to approach an idea and have another child, just do it with her when the time comes. So when she got pregnant with me, she immediately went to see this doctor. And as a result of a couple of tests and just observing how her body is reacting to pregnancy, they put her in a hospital. And my mom stayed in the hospital throughout the whole pregnancy. So she was in the
Oh my
hospital for
goodness.
9 entire months. She saw my dad just a couple of times. I think she spent maybe like 3 weekends in total at home. And yet I was born with emergency C-section. And
Emergency, why?
I stopped moving. They took me out. I needed to be like revitalized, and she stayed for another
Oh
month
wow.
with me in a hospital after.
So with that kind of trauma in mind, you wanted to be in the hospital for your own birth. Did you want to have a cesarean birth as well?
No, actually no, because the reason why my mom had the cesarean birth in the first place was because she is almost blind with one eye, and doctors in Russia for some reason said that the intensity of pushing during the vaginal birth can leave her completely blind. I mean, the 90s, I don't know like if that's the case today, but she was not recommended to have a vaginal birth. Both of her births were cesareans. I always thought that I wanted to have a vaginal birth. I thought that it would be a beautiful and very natural experience to go through as a woman to give birth to my children vaginally.
Well, you know, I think a lot of times when you're carrying twins, doctors don't want to do that. So I'm curious to see what happened. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the late pregnancy conversations around your birth and your advocacy and how these babies landed Earthside. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Sasha Bessonova. And okay, so pregnant with twins, want to be in the hospital. There's a lot of birth intensity in your mom and grandma's story. So ancestral birth stuff and sounds like fear. And on top of that, you're pregnant with twins. So you want to give birth at the hospital. In your case, you'd rather do it vaginally. How did your medical team handle that?
At some point, my OB asked me what is my birth plan, and I told her that I want to do it vaginally. And she just looked at me and she was like, "Great, we can do that." I was giving birth at UCLA. They do have a special team of like high risk doctors, and apparently, twin pregnancy by default is treated as high risk.
So they called you high
Um,
risk during your pregnancy for, but nothing
of
else for no other reason?
No other reason. No, it's literally just like a label that you have. They tell you that you're high risk, that you must give birth in
In the
the
OR.
operating room,
Yeah.
regardless of how the birth goes. They do not tell you that there is only C-section available. You can deliver vaginally, but you need to meet certain criteria for this to happen.
Okay, in your
And
case, do both babies have to be head down or just baby A?
both need to be head down,
Oh, wow.
and they need to have very little discrepancy between them in weight.
The weight. Yeah.
And it's okay for baby B to be up to, I believe it was 10%, might be 15%, but I believe it was 10%, to be 10% smaller, but not bigger. So basically, they won't allow you to go into labor and deliver vaginally if baby B is bigger, just for the risk of it being stuck, I
Do
guess.
they require epidural?
No, you can go
You can go
unmedicated.
natural. Okay.
You can go unmedicated if you
Did you
want.
have thoughts about how you wanted to do it?
Yeah, I was very much like, I'm going in a hospital because I just want for things to be quickly resolved and for the medical team to be there if needed, if things go not according to the plan. But I want to be in everything else. I want to be just like as natural as possible. I was very much like, I'm going to go in labor myself. I'm going to deliver vaginally, and I'm going to attempt unmedicated birth.
As
Just
you got closer to birth, did you meet the criteria?
yes, both of my babies were head down, and there was very little discrepancy in weight. Although, as we learned during the birth, sometimes when they do take those measurements, they're completely off.
Not terribly accurate.
Yeah. And also, as I learned, baby B can always turn after baby A is out because there's so much
So much
space.
space,
But
yeah.
exactly. But for that, you have the high risk doctors, and not all of them, but majority of them will be able to deliver a breech baby.
A
But
fetal breech extraction.
yep.
They just pull out the breech baby through the already open door.
Yeah, one of my doctors was like, I'm just gonna put the arm in and take that baby out. And I was like, okay, sounds
It's
good.
fun.
Sounds good. There's only one way out. But another thing that happened with this pregnancy that was quite stressful was that they always were telling me that I will go in labor early. They just say that twins arrive early. Twins arrive on the 38th week. So no one really gives you an opportunity to go to 40 weeks because they just arrive early. And then I was collecting all these items of Facebook Marketplace and meeting other twin families, and all of their birth stories were like, yeah, like 34, 35, 36 weeks. So I knew that there is a chance for me to go into labor earlier. And also, another thing that I was doing, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to your podcast
Woo.
to learn about other twin mothers' experiences, and also just like other podcasts that I found of this Italian woman from Australia specifically dedicated to twin pregnancies, trying to surround myself with knowledge, trying to surround myself with positive birth stories as I was heading into birth.
Were your babies die?
They were die-die, which means that they were identical twins, but they had two separate placentas.
They each had their own sac, their own placenta, and then must be the embryo split pretty early.
Yeah, I read that it happens like if the cell splits within the first 5 days.
Yeah, first 3 days or so. All right, so I mean that's the safest, healthiest set of twins, so nobody's too eager to get them out. But 38 weeks, for twins is kind of like not too early. But what happens if they don't come out at 38 weeks?
Well, I was not prepared for what happens then because I was geared to deliver them before Thanksgiving. And then we go to one of those appointments, like around 38 weeks, and my cervix is like 1 centimeter. And quoting my OB, she says it's made out of steel. So they're not going down, nothing is happening. And then for the first time, I hear the word induction. And it was just so bizarre because I don't think I really thought about it in my birth plan because I was under assumption that it will just happen naturally before I hit 38 weeks. And then it was holidays. And then I learned that oftentimes hospitals tend to schedule more births rather than
Oh
letting
yeah.
people go into birth naturally because of holidays. And it was really stressful because it was new information. So I needed to research. I haven't done any research before in inductions. And then my research showed me that oftentimes with twins, if you go into induction, it ends with 40% higher chance of C-section for the second baby. And then
Oh.
I was just thinking, like, why am I going to attempt a natural birth if the chance is higher for the second child to get out with C-section? It just feels like I'm going to have all of the items on the menu, try to do vaginally, but then also be cut. So I tried to understand what to do next. I had a doula. We had a long chat with her, and she mirrored me back very well. She was like, Sasha, I don't think you want to do induction. Like, I hear that you're really trying not to. So let's explore what we can do to go into labor naturally. And I asked my OB to schedule two non-stress tests for me, just so I know that babies are fine, because all the doctors were scaring me that it's very risky to go past 38 weeks just because of the statistics, not because of my case. And I think that's important for women who are pregnant with twins to listen to their intuition and also do educated research and look into their pregnancy history and what is happening right now with their babies, not just pure statistics. Because my pregnancy was smooth, my babies were fine, there was lots of liquid, they were feeling very comfortable, and there was no need for them to come earlier. They were totally okay to stay in and bake some more.
And you were comfortable with that. Was your doctor comfortable with that?
My doctor was on vacation. My other doctor was on vacation. Two other doctors who were filling in for my doctors were not comfortable with it. I was getting so many calls from the hospital with everyone literally explaining to me that I am taking a very big risk. And when I was asking them to explain why is it risky, they were talking about issues with placenta, issues with liquid, and pretty much telling me that I am taking a risk to kill my baby if I'm not gonna go and have an induction. It was really stressful. And
Wow.
I'm very thankful for my partner and my doula and my postpartum doula to all come together and give me this reassurance that if I believe I want to wait it out, I can. Because, again, I was doing the tests, and my tests were telling me that my iron is great, my liquids are great, my babies are fine, and I can keep being pregnant.
All right. That's a lot of courage, I think, when you're getting medical pushback. But I think you also, like, by doing the non-stress tests, gave them the information they needed to see that you're okay and the babies are okay and that you can keep going. So, how did your labor eventually start? Did you end up getting induced or did you go spontaneous?
My induction was scheduled December 1st at 10 p.m. On of November, I started doing all the fun things. I started eating spicy food and doing acupuncture and asking my partner to have sex with me, which was very fun. Like so late in the pregnancy. Like it was just like I could hardly get off the bed, let alone have sex. But it was
Twins.
awkward.
I mean, that's got to be some serious yoga happening.
Exactly, exactly. I couldn't fit into like any of the clothing anymore, but they say it's helpful to go into labor. And then we did have a castor oil shake
Both
twice
of you?
actually. No, that would be funny. No, I mean, my doula helped me like prepare it. And again, it was like a risk. I was like, oh, I'm going to have birth and have intense diarrhea. But at the end of the day, my water broke at 1 a.m. on December 1st. So the day when I was technically scheduled for induction, I naturally went
Oh,
into
wow.
labor. And I remember
You're like in bed sleeping?
waking up. I was woken up by a contraction and I was like, "Ooh, that was strong." And I was having contractions already. So like I had those like test contractions for a couple of days before that. So I definitely that was another thing that was helpful for me to make this decision because I could feel that my body is preparing to go into labor. So I just needed a couple of more days. I woke up from contraction, my water broke. I was so happy. I ran back to Daniel, woke him up, and I was like, wow, like I'm going into labor. It worked.
Wow, so this is the full 40 weeks.
hmm My full 40 weeks was December 3rd. So I was, yeah, like
All right,
39 weeks and 5 days.
all right, so you got what you wanted, then the natural onset, you're having contractions and your water breaks, and how does it progress from there?
I had two contractions. So I had the contraction that woke me up, and then the contraction after my water broke. And I text my doula and I was like, okay, we're doing it. Like it's starting. Yes. And she's like, how are your contractions? And I'm like, I had two. I have no more
Okay.
contractions. And she goes, okay, maybe try to go to bed and then text me when it starts being more intense so I can come over. Between that text and me being like, okay, she needs to come over was 15 minutes. Like literally after we had this message exchange, my contractions picked up and they started every 5 minutes,
Wow. Really fast.
super fast.
And
We,
then,
she came to my house. We were on the floor. Frank Ocean was playing. I think I listened to one entire album, which must have been an hour long. And then we were ready to go to the hospital because I was screaming. Not screaming. Okay, okay. That was exaggeration. I was not because I'm like, no, you were screaming later. That was not yet screaming. So I was having very intense contractions. They started coming more often, and it felt like if we're not going to the hospital now, the ride to the hospital in my sedan would be really, really painful. So we go to the hospital, we arrive there. First, we go into triage and they check me there. And then I go unmedicated with my contractions from the time we arrived to the hospital, which must have been like maybe little closer to 3 a.m. until about 7. I go unmedicated and I'm having this stretch of labor with my crazy contractions.
there's
Um,
cervical checks and all?
they did a couple of cervical checks. I was dilating steadily. My contractions started doubling. So I would have a contraction, and then a break. It was really
That's a pretty brutal
intense,
pattern.
pretty brutal pattern. And my contractions were still not like I didn't have any breaks. So it's from like 1 in the morning, my contractions were like every like 3 to 5 minutes. They were really, really close to each other. And when I could bear no longer, we did another cervical check, and I thought I would be like, for sure, 10 centimeters. I was like, this is no way, like, I'm not dilated yet. And I was 4.5. And this
Yeah.
is when I was like, okay, I'm not gonna die on this hill because if I'm only 4.5 and I still have so much to go, I need an epidural. And so I asked for an epidural. And that was a fantastic change. Like in 35 minutes, me from moaning nonstop with my eyes closed, not being able to like say a word, just like mumbling and like breathing nonstop. I was in the room with the light talking to doctors and nurses about food they ate on Thanksgiving dinner. Like it was such a crazy change. Like I recommend not being afraid of epidural because it's honestly an amazing thing that humankind has invented and it's so helpful and it gives you a break that you need to prepare for the big job. Some women don't need it, some women do need it. I was definitely the one who benefited from it a lot. It gave me an opportunity to drink some water, to just relax, and I started pushing around 1 p.m.,
Okay, you got there at what time?
around 3 a.m.
3 a.m. and now 1 p.m. You're pushing. Okay. How does pushing?
We started doing the test pushing in labor and delivery. Remember, I need to go to give birth in the
Or,
OR.
Yeah.
So currently, I'm just in a small room with a fantastic nurse. Her name is Angel. I feel like she is one.
Ah.
I have my husband there. I have my doula there. We are on a peanut ball, and my OB is there. This is another thing. My OB came from her holidays, and she was
Oh,
on
wow.
call the day I was giving birth. So
Well,
that
okay.
was such an amazing
Those babies were waiting for
coincidence.
your OB.
Exactly, exactly. So she's back. Like we are doing it together in a small room. And this is when the second baby's heart started to, I think it's called like decelling.
Decelerations. You're still not in the OR yet.
I'm not in the OR. I'm in
Okay.
the labor and delivery room,
And baby
and
B's having D cells.
baby bees having D cells, and they are just adjusting the monitors, trying to understand if it's the issue with the monitors. And my OB is like looking at it. And this is the reason why I was so excited and so happy that she was in the room because she knew me, she knew my story, she knew my pregnancy. So she trusted me to give this birth vaginally even when the baby bee's rate started to decelerating. So she didn't put me on a strict timeline. It wasn't like, okay, I give you 20 minutes. Like if I don't see the baby's crowning, like we need to go to C-section. She was like, I give you the time, you do this test pushing, and we'll see where we get. So the baby A started crowning. We were in a good position, and
Now you're in the OR?
they started transferring me to the
Ah,
OR.
okay.
The transfer to OR took maybe about 15 minutes. And by the time I got into OR, which by the way looked like a complete spaceship, everyone was wearing white. There were 40 people in. There was like bright lights. It was complete change of scenery from my cozy labor and delivery room. And I think this time that we spent in transition and just my mood shift made the baby A go back in. So
Oh
by the time
no.
I was in position, they like opened my legs and there was no head anymore. Like the baby just got back in. So we started back from the beginning, and the whole hour and a half of test pushing was pretty much lost. So it's really upsetting that you cannot give birth in labor and delivery
Well,
room
yeah.
with twins just because it's a
It's
protocol.
all those stimuli are pure adrenaline. Oh,
Yeah. So it was a big, big change. I was giving birth. I was not thinking about all the 40 people in the room. I was just focused on my doula on the right hand, my husband on the left hand, and whoever was the head in between my legs, giving me direction of what to do. I was pushing, 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 pushing. And then they were like, okay, baby B is having real hard time. Decel, decel, decel. The baby A needs to come out now. And then I remember this amazing doctor show up and he was like, remember, we talked about forceps. And then he takes out those like big salad spoons that look like they got them in like Target
oh.
on a discount. Like it was just like an object that was not from that room. They were like bronze color, very big, and it was not medically looking. But yeah, my first daughter, Nikita, she was born with the help of forceps. Thank God I had epidural because
Oh, yeah.
I
That
had
would
no
be very
idea. I had no idea
intense.
like how like that would go if I didn't. So, and my epidural was pretty light. Like I was still feeling my contractions. I was feeling that forceps. Like it was definitely an experience, but she came out. She needed to come out so fast that I did have a tear, and it did feel like I gave birth to like a 12-year-old baby. Like, obviously, it's hard when you're a first-time mom. You don't know how it feels when the baby comes out. My first baby coming out felt like a really, really big baby coming out, and she was 7 pounds
Okay,
when
that's
she came.
pretty big for a twin.
Yeah. So she came out, and then 40 minutes later, Manuela also went down the slide
Naturally.
naturally. And it was hard because the energy in the operating room was it was like a tornado. It was like everyone was really excited that I'm giving it vaginally, and then suddenly everything got really tense because Manuela was having hard time, and then things needed to like happen really fast. But at the end of the day, they both were out. They both were delivered vaginally. Delivering the second baby, I couldn't even wrap my head after Nikita came out, the baby A, when they were like, and let's keep pushing. And I was like, oh no, there is a second baby to push out. That's
Surprise.
incredible. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? But then she came out so much easier. I mean, she was smaller. She was 5.5.
Okay, so there was a differential.
Yeah, when we did our tests before, they were like same size. I'm doing like quotes, but they were obviously not. So when she came out 5.5, I was like, thank God she baked there for another 2 weeks. Like
All
that
right,
was
she would have
probably,
been really small.
yeah, that was probably really beneficial for her. So she came out and it was much easier to deliver her. And then they put them on my chest and my brain just goes into like, wow, the job is done. You have so much oxytocin released during this time. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Like it feels so good.
in another
Um,
planet.
Another planet, yeah, you're just transported.
Sasha, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful, empowering story. And I think, especially with your history and your ancestral history, it's a real turning point of empowerment that you're going to pass on to these babies as well. And really appreciate you coming and sharing. Where can we find you online?
I can be found on Instagram. My handle is Sasha Bessonova, which, by the way, means no sleep in Russian. Uh,
Well, it's accurate.
it's very accurate for where I am right
Two
now.
twin babies and
Yeah,
2 month olds.
2 months old. It's a very fun journey, and I could not imagine doing anything differently. And I'm very grateful that the team at the hospital was so professional and so supportive. And I'm still in touch with my OB and that angel, the nurse who helped
Nurse
us go
Angel.
through delivery. Yeah. So, yeah, I just empower
Wow.
all the twin moms to listen to their intuition and do educated research and do what's best for their babies.
Well, congratulations times two. Thank you for sharing. And at home, thanks for listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. For more pregnancy and parenting information just like this, visit us online at informedpregnancy.com.
Doctor, doctor, give me the news. I got a